All right. Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. I'm State Senator George Borrello from the 57th Senate District. Today I thought it would be good. I had many requests from media and others for a response to what was initially a New York Post article that was really, I would say, shocking, but has now led to others reporting on this. You may have heard, and I'm sure you are all well aware, that there was a phone conversation that happened between Melissa DeRosa, secretary to the governor, and several members of the Democratic members of the state legislature. And I read through the article, I heard other accounts, and my immediate reaction was that this is the first time that we're hearing any type of an apology from the Cuomo administration of any kind. And what is this apology? It's not an apology to the people who lost loved ones in the nursing homes. It's not an apology to the New Yorkers that have been asking for accountability, that have been asking for information and transparency. No, it's an apology to politicians for something that could have been essentially an inconvenience for them. That to me is just cold and unforgivable. That is truly what my first reaction was. And just to give you an idea, here's a quote. This is from Melissa DeRosa, the secretary to the governor. A quote from the event that occurred. It was because they were in a position where we weren't sure if we were going to give the Department of Justice or what to give to you guys. What we start saying is it was going to be used against us. Well, we weren't sure if there was going to be an investigation. Clearly, they're saying that they stonewalled information that was requested by the U.S. Department of Justice, that was requested by the New York State Legislature, both Democrats and Republicans, and they stonewalled that information. And the purpose of their conference was to essentially make up more excuses as to why this information was not released and why it was a political inconvenience to them. You know, and this goes back to me from to last March. I was one of only 4 senators that voted against giving the governor unprecedented and sweeping authority that extended at that time for more than a year. It was because I knew that it would lead to exactly this situation, where allowing only one person to have these binding decisions with no oversight would lead to tragedies like we saw in the nursing home and so much else. So now we have the consequences of those decisions that were made behind closed doors. And what are we going to do about it? Myself and my colleagues have introduced several measures to curb the governor's authority, to ask for accountability, to make him come back before the legislature and have his executive power authority, emergency authority renewed several times, and nothing has happened. So I'm having this conference today because myself, along with my colleagues, are calling for a federal investigation by the Department of Justice. We're also asking that Letitia James, our Attorney General, also conduct a further investigation. As I said, I personally introduced an amendment on the floor of the legislature asking for the state legislature to return to its constitutional obligation to be a co-equal branch of government. This has been what I have said for almost a year now. And these are the consequences. A government that is not transparent, a government that is not serving the people, and a government that must be accountable for its actions. So today I'm here to say that we have to step up so that the people of New York State can be assured that their government is serving the people, that it's accountable for its actions. So I'm calling on my colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, to do this, to return as a co-equal branch of government, and ultimately to issue the subpoenas that were not issued to ensure that we as a state legislature get those answers. Get those answers from the Department of Health, get those answers from anyone who works within the administration, including the governor himself. That needs to happen. So with that, I will open it up to questions if we have some. Okay, let me just continue on a couple other points that I hope might come up in some questions. I serve on the Aging Committee. This past week, the ranking member of the Aging Committee, Sue Serino, introduced an amendment asking for a subpoena to be issued by the Aging Committee to have the Department of Health and Dr. Zucker report to the committee and answer questions. The chairman of that committee, Senator Rachel May, said that it was irrelevant and out of order. So instead of getting that request granted and at least having a discussion on it, it was ruled not germane. I don't understand how the Aging Committee, which is in charge of nursing homes and certainly the accountability that the state has in those situations, is not germane. How could that not be germane for this committee? So myself and Senator Serino did try. And this is also a follow-up to the Investigations Committee, which happened the week before, where Senator Tom O'Mara was essentially, cut off. His microphone was shut off when he was asking for the same thing, to have the Investigations Committee of the New York State Senate issue a subpoena to the Department of Health. And Senator James Skoufis, who was the chair of that committee, rather arrogantly and dismissively said, well, the Republicans, when they were in the majority, didn't issue any subpoenas. What a cold, heartless, and political thing to say. First and foremost, myself and most of my colleagues in the Republican conference were not even here in the legislature when the Republicans were in the majority. But how is that politically, this political relativism, how is that even something to be brought up if you're not trying to stonewall, you're not trying to be the firewall for this administration and the lack of transparency that it's exercised? So again, I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if there's any questions.
Senator, we have a question from Matt Leader. He apologizes, he has no microphone. This question is, Nick Langworthy used very strong language today to describe the governor's actions, saying the governor's actions, quote, likely involve state and federal crimes and very clearly involves obstruction of justice. Do you agree with that characterization?
Well, I'll let the chairman speak for himself, but I will speak specifically to, what, if any, crime has occurred. Well, first of all, that's why we need an investigation. I'll say that. But let's remember that the Department of Justice requested this data, and this administration denied that. So that is obstruction of justice, or at least the accusation of obstruction of justice needs to be addressed. Also, you'll notice that Medicaid and Medicare have certain reporting requirements. Medicaid, I believe 90% of nursing home patients in New York State are on Medicaid in some form or another. So if there was a request made for that information, it needs to be honest and correct. Clearly, that was not the case. Also, you have to ask yourself, could this rise to some kind of criminal level of negligence? What happened? I mean, that is a huge concern for me. What were the discussions that happened that led to these decisions? It's one thing if the governor would have said, look, we made a mistake, I made a mistake, and we tried to correct that mistake. I think New Yorkers would have accepted that because this pandemic had so many unknowns. But the fact that the day after he issued that order, sending COVID positive patients into the nursing homes, he immediately the next day received communications from several organizations, advocates for nursing homes, that said this is going to be a huge problem, a huge and deadly problem. He chose to ignore those. At the same time, you had federal assets in New York City. You had the Comfort, the ship that was designed to hold thousands of people. You had the Javits Center. So was there a political discussion, and I'm just speculating here, was there a political discussion to say we're going to send folks in nursing homes instead of diverting them to the federal assets that the governor himself requested? Was this a political decision or was it a public health decision? Those are the kind of questions that need to be ferreted out as an investigation, part of an investigation. Any other questions?
Hi, it's John DiAugustino. So do you think that Washington's taking enough interest in this, or do you think that Washington's kind of just got its own battles that it's dealing with right now?
Well, look, I can tell you that there are tens of thousands, if not more, people in Washington that can deal. They should be able to multitask, I guess is what I will say. There are plenty of things going on. The COVID response, economic relief. All those things need to be addressed. But I can guarantee you that there are more than enough people in the Department of Justice and elsewhere in Washington that can address this specific issue. And it should be addressed because you're talking about the lives of American citizens, and particularly New Yorkers. And the federal government needs to stand up because clearly this administration has demonstrated that it cannot investigate itself fairly and accurately.
Senator Mark Goshgarian has a question.
Sure.
Hi, Senator Borrello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Oh. Hold on, I think we froze up here.
Hang on. Apologize.
Sorry, we froze up for a second. Mark, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay. Can I have you just move very slightly to your left, please? I don't mean to be a pain, but there you go. There you go.
All right.
I appreciate it. So basically, you're not really accepting Melissa's apology, right? I mean, it's weak.
Well, it's not even an apology. It's not an apology to any of us. It's not an apology to the people who lost family and loved ones in nursing homes. It was her conversation, which was supposed to be a private conversation between herself and Democratic lawmakers, was to an apology to them for the political inconvenience of them stonewalling the information. So let's be clear about that. This was leaked obviously by a member of a Democratic member of the state legislature that leaked this information. This was not a public apology. This was a conversation between Democrats in Albany to apologize for the political inconvenience. So I think we need to be clear on that. And you know that this was supposed to be a confidential conversation because you had some very, we'll call it honest responses from people like Rachel May. If you read the article in the New York Post, which has transcripts of the conversation, Rachel May said how she was complaining how she was attacked by her opponent on this subject. And a couple of legislators did express outrage for the political nature of this, and I have to suspect those may be the ones that leaked this. But this was not an apology to the people of New York. This was not an apology to the people who lost loved ones in nursing homes. This was a political apology to a group of Democrats for what was clearly an effort to stonewall and distract away from the truth and the actual data that was requested.
So just a quick follow-up then, to make it a little more local, what's the impact of all of this on your specific district, specifically Chautauqua County? We were both out there during the rally of the Chautauqua Home and Rehabilitation Center families. Those families have lost loved ones in that facility. What is your message to them and the impact of this locally?
Well, I think ultimately what we want to ensure that this governor is held accountable and that he cannot continue to make these unilateral decisions that have come with deadly consequences. That's really, this is what this is about. This is what this has been about for me since day one. This has been about the fact that we have a governor that was given, dictatorial power that clearly has a track record of doubling down on bad decisions. It's one thing to have sent these folks into these nursing homes that were COVID positive, but to basically stonewall for 45 days and not make any changes. And as he called it, it was like a fire through dry grass to send these COVID positive patients. And then to deflect and to say that he was following CDC guidelines when this was the only state, he was the only person out of all the states that handled it in this manner. We need to prevent this from happening again. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be closure for those families. And most importantly, we need to make sure that this never happens again. And that's the impact on every single person in my Senate district and everyone in the state of New York.
Senator Matt Leader had a follow-up question.
Sure.
Nick Langworthy also said Cuomo should be impeached. Do you agree Cuomo should be impeached, or is that too much too soon?
I think we need to follow the proper steps. I'd say nothing is off the table at this point. But let's keep one thing in mind, folks. We want to ensure that we take every legal avenue that's available to us to bring out the truth. And where that leads us, it will lead us, like I said, Chairman Langworthy will have his own take on this. I'm here to say that this should be not a partisan issue. This should be Democrats and Republicans in the state legislature coming together to act as a co-equal branch of government and restore our constitutional obligation to be that check on the executive. And that will have to involve the next steps in ensuring that accountability occurs. You're welcome. Any other questions? Well, I want to say thank you again, and I wish we were having this conference today to talk about other things, positive things, about our economy moving forward in New York State, and about so many other things that are so important. But there's no denying that I don't think anybody in this state doesn't know somebody that lost a loved one or themselves having lost a loved one as a result of these decisions. And we need to know, we need to bring closure for those folks. At the very least, we need to let them know that they are not being ignored. And that, to me, is why it's so important that we continue to keep this in the forefront. So thank you all again for being here. I appreciate you being here, especially on such short notice. Thank you.